The scene is set on a snowy night at a secluded cabin. Inside we see that a glass of wine has been spilled onto the floor. It is revealed that the wine was poisoned and it has been consumed by our protagonist in this story, a blonde man with long hair named Ian. In front of him stands a regal man, who says that because Ian is so strong he mixed in a stronger dose, and he should be dead in minutes. Ian looks up, wanting to know why this guy has betrayed him like this. He says that it is because our protagonist is too strong. He has a power that no one else in the entire empire can compare to, and it has spread anxiety to the citizens. Ian understands, countless people have lost their livelihoods due to the misuse of magic. The man states that even he himself is so incredibly scared of our protagonist to the point where it has driven him mad. He apologizes to Ian, even referring to him as an old friend and saying that he will never forgive himself for this. He then turns around and exits the cabin, entering the night and leaving our protagonist behind. Ian remains on his knees, slowly dying from poison as the cabin begins to ignite on fire. It is revealed that he has a trick up his sleeve. He slowly removes a dagger from his shirt. While regretting everything he did in his past life, he researched a lot and came across a dagger with time magic embedded into it. If he stabs himself with the dagger before the poison reaches his heart, he will be able to have a second chance at life. He does just that, plunging it into his chest, driven by rage from the betrayal he has just suffered. The floor around him glows blue in the shape of a circle and a triangle, and weird voices chant out in an unknown language. This is it, his chance to go back to how things were before. His life and all his mistakes flash before his eyes. His mother's death, him meeting the emperor, and finally a flock of crows on the battlefield, picking at the bodies that litter the floor beneath his feet. The next thing he knows, he is in his childhood body, and there doesn't seem to be any wounds or injuries on his body. A woman calls out his name and he turns around to see his mother. She has long blonde hair and is wearing a corset. Ian is in shock. His mother, who had passed away, is alive again, and it seems like he has succeeded at traveling back in time. He turns around to look at the scene around him. There is a white tent with a white flag. Outside of the tent are a bunch of children lined up to be assessed on their skills. The people doing these assessments are the spiritual knights who decide if they pass or not. It has worked. Ian is no longer a dying man living his last moments in regret, but a child again, ready to do things different this time. Magicians are the foundation of this nation's empire, and in order to be trained, all children have to take the Mana Reaction Assessment when they turn 12. The first part is the Mana Brain, which is responsible for the manifestation of magic, and the second part is the Mana Heart that controls and generates magic. Those who have both of these talents are admitted into the Magic Academy, and upon graduation they are treated like nobles. Ian has gone back 30 years, which is further than he expected. He spent so much time researching the dagger he used and was lucky he had it on him at the time of his death. The reason he was so interested in turning back time was because he wanted to clean his hands from the blood they were stained with. He killed numerous people in his old life. He was loyal to the Emperor, who was his closest friend, named Ragnar, but it turns out the Emperor was just using him and discarded him like trash in the end. Ian isn't going to let his life end so meaninglessly like that again. He tells himself that this time things are going to be different. He leaves his mother and begins to walk over to the spiritual knights. He approaches one of the guards and introduces himself as Ian Page from Mogrian Village. The guard smiles and recognizes our protagonist as the son of Venessa. He allows him to enter the tent but tells him not to ask too much questions to the magician inside. In the tent we see the magician. He has long black hair and a ponytail. He tells Ian to lower his head a little as he is going to use mana to stimulate his brain. Ian does what he says and feels a little dizzy for a moment, but it is only temporary. The magician smiles. He has discovered the Mana Brain and the Mana Heart inside Ian and says that his life is going to change for the better from now on. Ian doesn't seem happy about this information, probably because he was already expecting it. He tells himself that it is not enough for him to just get into the academy. He begins showing off his skills, lighting a fireball in one hand and manipulating water in the other, casting 2 spells at once. He tells the magician that he was just randomly able to do this one day. The magician can't believe it and asks if Ian is sure someone didn't teach it him. When Ian says no, the magician gets serious and leans forward, asking Ian to speak the truth. He is able to use interrogation magic that can determine if a person is lying or not by analyzing the body's reaction. He tells Ian not to lie or he will be known as a traitor to the Empire, and his family may even get executed. Ian doesn't get flustered though and stands by what he said. He learned how to do that without being taught. The magician is impressed. His interrogation magic doesn't find any lies, and he wonders who this kid is. They are interrupted by the sounds of Ian's mother screaming, and he looks out the tent to see what's going on. Vanessa is being bothered by the guard that was standing outside the tent. Grabbing onto her arm, he says that she has been widowed for 7 years and shouldn't be playing hard to get at her age. The magician and 2 knights exit the tent demanding to know what all the fuss is about. The guard gets scared, telling them it is nothing and some lowly kitchen maid was just causing problems. This makes Ian furious. How dare this punk call his mother lowly? It looks like he is about to do something. However, he is stopped by the magician, who tells the guard that since Ian has the power of mana, he and his family are now equal to nobles, and insulting nobles is a crime that could lead to execution. The scumbag guard falls to the floor, begging them to grant him mercy and let him live. He then turns around to Vanessa and does the same, apologizing for the words he said and asking for forgiveness. Ian approaches the guard and tells him to listen carefully. Ian says that he knows all about the disgusting things the guard has said and done in front of his mother. He threatens the guard, telling him that he should also warn all his scumbag friends. If any of them do something like that again, he will have their head. The guard nervously says he understands. Sweat drips down his face. Bro is really scared of a 12-year-old. After all of this, Ian thanks the magician for helping him out back there. He says it was nothing and it is his job to protect fellow magicians after all. He gestures to the man next to him whose name is Lord Aaron. He is going to be guarding our protagonist and Vanessa for the time being while things are arranged. Aaron has a mustache upon his lip and a white cape on his back. He tells Ian that he is going to bring him to an inn where the Night Order is currently staying. They can live there temporarily. Ian holds the hand of his mother, agreeing to go with Aaron and start the next stage of his new life. The magician watches him leave and smiles to himself. He's impressed that someone is that intelligent and capable while being so young. He is so impressed that it looks like he is going to have to report it to the imperial family. That evening the sky is dark and the town is quiet. The guard from earlier walks down the street angrily, drunk and furious that some kid and a lowly kitchen maid were able to force him to his knees. He tells himself that in the near future he is going to get payback by getting freaky with Vanessa while Ian watches. A hooded figure can be seen behind him. The hooded figure uses paralysis magic on the drunk guard and he is frozen in place on a bridge. The hooded figure is Ian, who overheard what the guy just said about his mother and isn't happy. He removes the hood from his head and begins fabricating a story to explain the guard's death, saying he was humiliated and found comfort by drinking. He then got so drunk that he accidentally tripped into the river and drowned. While the man is paralyzed, Ian pushes him into the water and watches him drown. Ian thinks for a while on whether or not it is okay to let him die like this. After all, the whole reason he has come back in time is to be a better person this time. Looking into the distance, he realizes that he will never be able to completely wash the blood from his hands, and the best he can do is to just protect the people most precious to him, like his mother. He watches the guard's lifeless body float around, and it reminds him of how the Emperor left him to die in the cabin in his past life. Ian quickly returns home and begins feeling exhausted. Using that one paralyzed spell has depleted his mana. He tells himself that he needs to grow his small body as fast as possible while approaching his sleeping mother. In his previous life, he received recognition as a first-class magician after attending 1 year of Magic Academy. However, even though he became a magician, his mother wasn't able to live a life of luxury and passed away. Ian looks down at his mother, saying he is going to be sure to protect her this time around so she can live longer. The scene cuts to a large regal building. It is the Green River Empire's capital. Inside is the Emperor of Green River, whose name is Terry. He is blonde with a blonde mustache and fancy clothing. He is in the middle of a conversation with another magician named Herbert, and the two of them are discussing our protagonist. Herbert explains that mana is an energy that flows and circulates in blood, and from the moment someone possesses a mana brain and mana heart, they are recognized as a magician. However, in order to actually use this mana properly to cast magic, a person must be trained. Yet our protagonist was able to freely use magic without training. He compares our protagonist to someone called the First Magician. This was someone long ago who taught himself how to use mana. He discovered how to manifest magic by himself and became known as the First Magician. Terry scoffs, thinking that there is no way there is someone alive today using magic without going to an academy. Herbert agrees that it is suspicious, and even he finds it hard to believe what he has heard. He says he will be going to confirm it with his own eyes. The Emperor thinks to himself for a moment, knowing that if it is true, then our protagonist must possess a dangerous ability. He calls to the prince, who is standing outside and has been listening to everything. In walks the Prince of Green River. His name is Haydn, and he asks his father why he called for him. Terry says that since it has been 5 years since the prince has left the castle, he should go outside. Dude needs to touch some grass. Terry tells his son that he is going to give him 300 soldiers and 3 magicians, and he should go and collect a boy named Ian Page. For a moment he hesitates, thinking it foolish for him to trust his son with something so important. However, Haydn insists, saying he can be trusted and will complete the mission. The emperor tells him okay and that he should go and start preparing immediately. The journey to Mogrian is a long one. Herbert, who is still standing in the room, jokes, saying that he should go and prepare too, since it's going to be hard for him to find 3 magicians that actually want to go outside. As soon as he leaves the room, his face turns serious. His assistant next to him asks if he is going back to the tower to find the magicians, but Herbert says no. He begins walking ahead with his eyes focused, saying that there is somewhere he needs to head first. The scene cuts back to the place where our protagonist is staying. He looks out the window as if he is expecting someone. He knows the Imperial family should be coming for him very soon and things are moving as planned. Ian knows that the magician must have been impressed by his skills and immediately reported it to his superiors, and that once the current emperor found out, he would have sent the prince with a bunch of soldiers. He suspects Herbert will likely come too. He is the master of the Ivory Tower, and sooner or later there is going to be an internal war between the Imperial Castle and Ivory Tower. Ian knows this from his past life. He doesn't know which side he is going to help though, and just knows that he doesn't want to be exploited by anyone this time. His thoughts are interrupted by the Imperial Order, who have arrived much sooner than he expected. Outside he is greeted by the magician from earlier, who is holding a magic orb. He says that the Emperor has issued an Imperial Order. Ian follows the customs and gets down on one knee while putting his fist over his chest. A message from the Emperor appears from the magic orb and the magician begins to read it aloud. It states that the Emperor has heard of the high abilities that have been displayed by Ian Page, and as he has received recognition as a magician in this empire, his name will be recorded in the Ivory Tower's registry. The Emperor also invites Ian to visit him at the Imperial Castle, and he is sending his eldest son to accompany him there. Once the message has been read, Ian begins to rise to his feet. He is immediately greeted by a knight named Arnold, who informs our protagonist that he and his fellow knights have been assigned the honor of serving him, and will be escorting him to the Lord's castle while they wait for the prince to come. The Lord of the Mogrian territory, Marcus, awaits their arrival. He has a full beard and a fur coat. He looks over to his children, telling them to be mindful of their speech. Although Ian is young, he is still a magician and the Emperor is interested in him, so Marcus wants to leave a good impression. He extends his arms wide for our protagonist, welcoming him to their castle. Ian spends the next few weeks at the castle. He becomes a hot topic and even the maids begin to talk about him. They are impressed that someone so young is able to create fireballs with his bare hands. We see Ian at the training grounds where he has been spending the majority of his time. He practices his magic by raising his hand and summoning a frost nova. It looks like he's got himself a fresh new fit too. His frost nova worked and around him is now a bunch of ice and snow. However, Ian isn't happy and thinks that this isn't good enough. If he was in his other body, he would be able to freeze the whole castle, and not just the training grounds. His powers are limited and he needs something to make up for his lack of mana. Someone interrupts his training, rushing over all out of breath like something is wrong. The man has a monocle and gray hair. He asks for Ian's help, saying that the Lord Marcus has gone missing.